Hey everyone, welcome back to What the Fertility. Today we have an exciting guest back with us. We have Kelsey with us. I love getting to kind of hear the afterwards once we record with someone. So excited that she is back with us. If you haven't heard her episode before, I would say stop now so you can kind of hear part one. She was on with us in season 2. So if you want to go back and listen and then come back here for season 3 episode, she's going to be sharing how she's pursuing her second adoption, NICU stay, adoption grants, and so much more. So we're so excited you're on with us and just to hear kind of what life has been like.
Yes, I'm excited to share again. It's always so fun to just chat and connect and yeah.
Oh. Well, if you want to kind of just tell us what happened since after obviously recording with us so people can kind of catch up with what's been going on.
Yeah, so I think last time I shared a little bit about we were pursuing our second adoption. We were just in the initial stages at that time. So we finished our home study and everything kind of started moving really quickly from there. We worked with a local adoption agency to get our home study completed, and then we moved on to working with a consultant. And we actually kind of did a little bit of shifting, working with a different consultant and an adoption advisor to see what other connections we could have because our first daughter we adopted from the state of Florida. And so we were curious to see if a different agency had connections closer to our home state of North Dakota. And that's not always the case, but we were just interested to see what that looked like. So we moved forward with that. And then probably in, I don't know, early February of 2023, we started becoming active with different agencies across the US again. And so it all kind of felt so familiar, but I was really surprised how much fear I had in it. I didn't think I was going to be, I was like, oh, we've done this before. Shouldn't be scary. Like we know what to expect. But I actually was really trapped in fear and just so afraid of what if we walk through another disruption? What if we lose all the money that we've saved? And just all the traditional fears that you might have walking into something that's really unknown, like anything fertility, adoption, it's all unknown.
My
So
goodness. Yeah. And how
yeah,
how long was the time frame from when you had your first your daughter and then to okay, now we're gonna try and pursue
yeah.
another? What was that time?
I I mean, honestly, I was probably in my heart after we adopted our first daughter, Navy. I was so ready when she was 6 months old to do it again. I was like, let's go. I think you're just so full of joy and you see what can happen and you have this a little bit of baby bliss. Um, but my husband was like, let's wait a little bit and just kind of calm down. So we just took a lot of time to pray about it. But she was about 2 years old when we started our home study, and that took a few months. So by the time we were seeing different scenarios and working with adoption professionals, she was about 2.5.
Okay.
Um, and so it felt like a good time apart. I was actually glad that I waited because I just now kind of being on this side, I just don't know. I don't know that I would have handled two super littles really
Sure.
close together well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a lot in itself. And
it's a
then adding in just all the stress and everything that comes with adoption. Just
yeah.
I mean, you've gone through a disruption before, you know what that looks like. So just even walking through that with you had a little one, that's I'm sure has to be really overwhelming.
Yeah. And before we move forward with our traditional infant domestic adoption, we did look at other routes too. I went through a whole journey where I learned I had endometriosis and had surgery. And then it was kind of this thought of, do we try IVF? Do we look at embryo adoption? And just we wanted to have all of our decisions made before moving forward in one route. So part of that initial period time of I really want to adopt again to deciding to move forward, we did a lot of soul searching and really figuring out which was the best route for us. And it's kind of scary because you're on this little cliff of safety, you know what you know. And it was scary to think of a different route of IVF. I don't know that route, or to think of embryo adoption. I'm not it was all new to me. So infant domestic adoption felt familiar, even though there was scary parts to it. So I think we really just came down to like having this conversation of when we look at the children that are in our home, how do we want to explain to them how they joined our family? And we felt comfortable already having a child through adoption and then having like giving them a sibling with that same story, so that they would always have each other. And that was so important to us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just moved forward. And I think the other part of fear too was that now it wasn't just my husband and I, it was also our daughter in it. And like, even though she was 2.5, we would talk a little bit about like, you might have a brother or sister and they grow in their birth mom's tummy. And just like you grew in your birth mom's tummy, and like just keeping the language really simple. But she would like go to school and stuff little baby dolls up her belly and be like, I have a baby in my belly. Like she was
Oh,
already
yeah.
starting to talk about that stuff. And so I was like, okay, she's kind of getting it. I don't think she really fully understands, but she knew enough to talk about like, her friends at school has like, oh, so and so's brother, so and so's baby sister. And so she was starting to use those words, and it felt so scary to be like, now I'm also stewarding this little 2.5-year-old through this too. Like this is part of her story, and it's scary to know like how to navigate that correctly because it's all new territory for us. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I
yeah.
can relate so much. I actually just talked about this on our last episode with me and Kat with my son. He's almost 2.5, and just like navigating it now with like a child in the mix is so much different and such another layer that I never even anticipated or even thought of before. And
Yeah.
now you have to explain it to them too. And like their little brains like get it to an extent, but like yeah, they get more than like I even thought they would. And
Yes.
it's so wild. It's
Or
yeah.
like, yeah, sometimes the questions they ask, like I remember Navy asking, well, like she knows her birth parents' names. And so she would ask me like, are mama and papa gonna be this baby's parents? And so she was already starting to think and process, and we were trying to read books about adoption and talk to her. I mean, she knows that she's adopted. We've talked to her since birth, basically telling her her story over her and just kind of trying to honor that piece of adoption for her so that whatever it looks like as she grows older is her choice. But it was scary to be like, wow, she's kind of grasping enough to know that we're walking through this. And how do I prepare her heart for potential pain, for potential loss? But like, we are part of a broken world and we can't ever fully protect our children from everything. And so I think some of the beauty in us walking through a second adoption and going through hardship was that like she got to walk alongside us in that. And I think that builds resiliency in our family and just keeps us and our attachment and our bond so much stronger because we've walked through something heavy and hard, but yet we've also seen something really beautiful too. So it was such a precious and fearful time, honestly. But yeah, so we continued to move forward and saw cases, and we're starting to, just like jump back into that feeling again. And I didn't realize how hard that would be. I thought I spent a lot of time in my counselor's office prior and just really talking through like, what is it going to look like? What is my heart going to start feeling? And I really didn't think that I would struggle with some of the similar feelings of like rejection or loss or, you know, presenting our whole family's life to another family and hearing, no, we chose somebody else. As much as we like cheer and celebrate for that other family that was chosen, it's still emotionally hard for yourself to walk through it and
Absolutely.
be like, it's not us, like we're not good enough. And
Hmm.
yeah. And so it was hard to like keep in our mind that like we just weren't the right parents for those babies, but we prayed over each of the like families and babies that we presented to. And I firmly believe that like what we pray over them is sown into their life. And so even though we don't get to parent those children or we don't know their stories, like those prayers go with them. And so I really felt like a lot of intention this time around, kind of knowing a little bit more what to expect. So
Awesome.
yeah, that was a little bit different, new experience. And then so a little bit of our story too is this time around, we worked a lot more on using like fundraising and grants, and that's sometimes taboo in the adoption community because, it does feel like a privilege that we have to have that opportunity to do that. But for us, it was one of the only ways that we could make another adoption work. So one of the grants that we ended up like applying for was actually a sponsorship grant where we would serve a widow's house for a day and get a community of friends and family around us. And they would send out like letters like you would for, will you sponsor me for a 5K? Well, they would send out letters to their friends and family asking for sponsorship to serve on a widow's home for the day. And then that money that we raised actually went towards our adoption. So it was serve a widow, fund an adoption.
That's amazing. That's
It
really,
was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and we were diligently working on this project because it takes a lot of work. We had to find somebody that we were comfortable serving and that needed help. Thankfully, my husband is full-time active duty guard, and so he knew, um, unfortunately, he knew somebody who had just recently lost her husband to cancer, and she was a very young mom. She had just had a baby a month after her husband passed away, and she already had a 4-year-old. So we approached her and just asked if she would be willing to let us serve her home. And she was. She needed some work, like staining her deck and doing yard work and painting and just kind of like, things that you can't do with two young kids when you're by yourself. And so we started that process and we worked with an agency called Both Hands, and they supported us alongside that. So we were diligently like working on that, getting ready for the project in the summer to raise money for adoption. And kind of out of the blue on a random Tuesday, I'm at work and I'm about to go into a client's home for a therapy visit because I'm a speech therapist. And I look at my phone. It's an adoption. You kind of have to be tied to your phone a little bit.
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to see a case. So I look and I see that we have an email from an agency that we're working with in Texas, and they said it was a baby born case. So that means that the baby is already here. And I quickly like scanned through it, and there was a little picture of a baby on there. And this was like right after Father's Day. We had just gotten a pretty devastating, like not yet, that we were in the mix for the final family profiles. And then they chose somebody else. So we were kind of a little bit heartbroken. And I looked through it and I was like, "Oh, I can't do this right now. Like I just gotta like worry about it later." But with those agencies, baby born cases need to be like notified really soon so that you can travel. So I knew that we would probably like get passed over because I wasn't able to respond for like another hour or 2 hours. So
I was gonna
after I get
say,
out of my
how do
therapy,
you like go into then someone's house and just like function at your job? I would like
I
literally
don't
be, like spiraling. I'm
I
like,
mean, there probably was a little bit of spiraling happening. I think I was like thinking about it. I was just thinking like I need to call my husband, or I was kind of like checking my watch to be like, is my husband texting me? Because we had a joint email, so
oh,
he would
okay,
see
yeah.
them too. So I was like, I wonder if he saw this case. He wasn't as glued to the phone as I was, so he kind of waited for me to notify him. So he never texted me. I don't know. I think I just blacked out and powered through. Um, and so I get back out to my car and I just text my husband. I'm like, "Hey, did you see the email? What are your thoughts?" Just kind of like tossing it to him of like, it's so scary. We just got off of like a not yet. I don't know. Can we put our profile out there again? By this time, it's like an hour and a half past the like deadline that they want families to say yes to. So I'm like, he's probably gonna say no, and then we can just move on, whatever. And he's like, I don't know, what do you think? Just kind of tosses it back to me, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We just felt so indecisive and kind of a little bit like I think we were just operating a little bit out of our fear, honestly. We were just scared to say yes and scared to like actually get our hopes up, kind of. So,
Like, because you said that
uh,
you just got that, like not yet, or I don't know
yeah,
the terms, I'm sorry, but basically that they chose a different family. So,
yeah.
I mean, sure, I can't even imagine going right into something else in hopes, obviously, you don't want to get devastated again.
Yeah, yeah, because I think it was like a day difference, Father's Day. We like had this amazing day. We spent the day at the zoo and we just really like did all these fun things with our daughter and my husband. And then like at the end of the day, we got the not yet. And I think I just bawled my eyes out and went back to work the next day, and it was just like, I don't know if I'm ready to like fully say yes. And like, can I be all in for this baby? And we were just scared. There were scary parts too. Like we knew that she was in the NICU, and that was kind of scary being like, we don't know how long. And so we actually called our adoption advisor and I just talked with her about it. And she was very she's like a lawyer by trade. So she was very blunt. And sometimes I don't do good with blunt.
Yeah.
But like
Me
I'm
either.
like
It's
soften the
okay.
blow, please. Yeah. So, but I think I did need the bluntness. I needed her to just really be like, well, can you tell me why? Like, why is this a no? And she really just reminded us about when we started working with her and where our hopes were and our heart was before getting some no's and getting like not yet. She was like, this is a case that you guys would be totally open to. Like, why not? Why is the answer no? And so I'm like, you're right. I think we're just afraid. And she really just encouraged us to like pray on it and then have another discussion and move forward. Yes or no. And I was like, okay. So my husband and I, we did this thing sometimes where we are indecisive with a case where we would like take some time and each pray independently. And then we would either talk in person if we were together or like call. And we would just say, okay, 1, 2, 3, yes or no. And just like the instant has to be yes or no. So if we were in agreement, then we move forward. And if one of us said yes and the other one said no, then we didn't move forward. So we each kind of like thought about it and prayed about it and really looked into it. Probably took, I don't know, 5 minutes for that. And then we were still like during the work day. So I called him and I'm like, okay, 1, 2, 3, yes or no. And we both said yes.
Oh,
Shocking. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll send over everything. So I had like all these spreadsheets saved on my phone because you have to be ready to send everything right away. So
yeah.
I sent our yes to our agency. I'm like, yes, please like include us in presenting to this family. We would, whatever. And I was like, there's no way. They probably already picked a family. We're like 3.5 hours past the deadline of notifying. It's like way too late. I think I sent that email at like 5:30. And on this night, we were getting ready to have part of our fundraising event where all of our friends and family were getting together and sending letters together for our fundraising for the widow's home. So I go home, my sister comes over to babysit. I get Navy like supper made, just carry on with my day. I'm kind of like, okay, I just have to like keep stepping forward so I don't think about it.
Oh,
Um, and then I was like, I should probably call my mom and just let her know because she lives about 3 hours away. And I thought, if for some
okay.
reason we are
Yeah.
chosen, like we literally have to get on a plane like now.
Because you said
So,
the baby was in Texas, right?
yeah,
Okay.
and we live in North Dakota.
Yeah.
So, there's like it's like a 24-hour drive. So I'm like, we're not going to make it to drive there. Like we'd have to get on a flight. So I called my mom and she was like taking a nap. And I'm like, hey, just FYI, like we're presenting to a case that a baby's already born and you might need to like, I don't know,
Here.
get ready. And she's like, okay, I already have a bag packed because she was prepared. Like when we started this adoption process, she had a bag packed and had
Oh,
it tucked away in her room and was like, if you need me to come, you just call and I come. And
I
so she was like all packed and ready. She took her little nap so she could, I'm like, okay, you're ready to go. I'm like, well, I'll call you when I find anything out. So she was like, okay. So we prayed and then we got off the phone. We went to our event. And as I'm driving there, the adoption agency calls me from Texas. And my heart was like pounding. Like they don't call you unless you are like chosen.
oh my goodness.
Or I was like, maybe we're in the final. Like I'm trying not to get my hopes up. Like maybe we're in the final few families that they want to look through. But no, she calls and she's like, hey, are you with your husband? And I'm like, no, but I'm actually on my way to go like visit him. She's like, okay, well, please call me back like right away when you're with him. So I'm like, okay.
We're like,
My
wait, no,
heart,
just tell me now.
I'm like racing there and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I think I was like sweating and my heart was pounding. And I'm like, is this happening? Like, I don't want to get my hopes up because I'm a little bit afraid, but also like, what, what are we like I couldn't even think. I
All
don't
the
even know what
feelings.
I thought. Yeah, like just all the feelings. So I'm like running into our church looking for my husband. And I'm like, hey, we gotta like go over here and we gotta call like this adoption agency back. So we go over in like a random corner of our church and we call them and she's like, hey, you guys need to come get your baby girl. Like she's waiting for you.
Oh my God.
And how soon can you get here? And I was like, what? I mean, we just started crying.
Yeah,
We were
immediately.
so in shock and just, yeah, had no idea. I mean, you like had an idea, obviously you put yourself out there, but I think we
Then
were
to
just
actually
so,
get picked and like
yeah,
tell you yes, I'm sure that is like
yes.
the most incredible feeling.
Yeah. And especially because I think I had already like written myself out of the yes category because we were late to respond. And I'm like, it took us so long to make a decision. And, they probably already picked another family. And I was like, there's no way they're going to pick us. And how are we going to get there? And I have to tell my work, like, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, we kind of were like freaking out. I think I asked her to like for sure tell me. I'm like, okay, so wait, like for sure we are like we're matched. We're like for sure the ones that need to fly there. And she's like, yes. I don't know how else to tell you, but yes. And I'm
Like,
like,
come
okay.
here.
And like, I think I just needed to hear it like 3 or 4 times. So um yeah, we were just like shaking and it was just the best, like, I don't know, the most precious little moment of being so thankful that things did happen differently this time. And there was still pain in the waiting up until the point of matching with her. But um, we knew she was like already born and we knew that like the rights were already signed. And so there was
They were
like, yeah, there was like
amazing.
very low risk for disruption. There was no risk for disruption. Like she literally was like, fly here to get your baby. Like she's waiting for you.
Oh,
And I think that was just such a gift because my heart was so fearful of like the loss that we had experienced walking through a disruption and like knowing that that can happen, but being fearful that if it did happen, that I would just like freeze and not want to keep moving forward. So, yeah, that was like a thankful part of our story. So we finished our letter sending party and it was so precious because we got to announce to all of our friends and family that were there. We said like, so surprise, like we actually are gonna leave for Texas tomorrow because our baby girl is waiting for us. So
well, what a
precious.
beautiful moment. And it's like
Yeah.
God just like worked in that whole thing. And especially in that moment where all your friends and family were there and you got to
Yeah.
announce that. Oh, that's
Yeah.
so
It was so wonderful. It was like, it's like the feeling, I think infertility takes so much from you. And it was the feeling like I felt like I got to announce like a pregnancy or like, something so special to us of like, she's actually here. Like we knew before everybody else. And
yeah.
just this feeling of like, we know something so special and so sacred. Now we get to share it with like the people that we love the most. And they're like standing alongside us and just hugging us and crying. And um, I called my mom back and I'm like, so yeah, you're actually
Oh,
gonna need to drive here because we are getting on a flight tomorrow at 5 a.m. And it was just amazing. Like our community just walked alongside us and our like head pastor, he was there and he's like, Kate, let's look at flights. And they're like getting us all set. I mean, I was just like shaking. I couldn't even think of what I needed to be
wow.
doing. I'm like, I need to be home and packing. Um, but I don't even know what I need to pack anymore. So it was kind of
Did
a
you just
crazy
have
little
like all
experience.
baby stuff just like waiting?
We kept some stuff from our older daughter, Navy, but I honestly thought it was going to take us a really long time because the like statistics are if you already have a child, like it usually does take a little bit longer. So from our home study to like the crazy thing is for Navy, our older daughter, from the date of our home study to the day of her birth was a year minus or was 9 months minus a day. So like almost a pregnancy. From the date that our home study was completed to our second daughter's birth it was exactly 9 months. Like it's so crazy when I'm like, God was in just this really small details. So I still did get to experience the like length of a pregnancy. It
Yeah.
was just so different because it was pregnancy of my heart and like this hopeful pregnancy of anticipating the child in our home and then also loving their birth family for the choice that they made. It was just, yeah, it's just such a precious little sacred part of each of our girls' stories.
That's
So yeah, we
incredible.
got home and we packed all night and I didn't sleep. We got to the airport at 3 a.m. and we flew out at 5. And, by like 2 p.m., we were holding our daughter in the NICU. And they're like, what do you want to name her? I don't
Oh my gosh.
know. Yeah, like the whole flight, my husband and I were like talking about names and we're like, we had this picture of her, this one little picture, but I was like, I feel like I need to see her. I just
Mhm.
need to like see and touch her and just hold her. So it was really precious. And then we got to like hear more of her story, and part of her story is a NICU stay. And so she was already a month old when we matched with her. She had been in the NICU for a month prior, and she was working on things like feeding. And so, of course, me as a speech therapist, I'm coming in feeling a lot of pressure of like, they're going to be looking at me like, here, do it. And I'm like, it's different when it's your own baby. Like you can't. Like I think I just had a little bit of like fear of I don't want to do anything wrong. And like there's a different emotional tie to this baby than like a patient that I'm working with. So um that was a little bit challenging, but we had like such an amazing team of nurses and therapists, and the like main NICU nurse that stayed with our daughter, she was there the day she was born, and she would like pick up extra shifts, and she like talked to us about like, yep, me and the like occupational therapist would pray over her and just pray for her family. And
Oh my
like we
goodness.
didn't even know she was born, we're just going on with our normal day, but I'm like, you were praying for us, like it was us. So it was really precious, and she was there the day that we got to meet our daughter. So that was like such an honor just to get to visit with her and hear all about like her early days. And she taught us so much. And I think I cried my weight in tears to
Yeah,
them
sure. Yeah.
while I was in the NICU. And that was like being in the NICU, I thought I was like prepared for that, but I really didn't realize how mentally draining that is. Um, and so we were there for 2 weeks in the NICU before we kind of convinced them to discharge us. They really wanted her to be eating better, but she was eating with a feeding tube. And they wanted to possibly do surgery. And we were kind of like, let's wait and see if we can get home and then get her with our medical team and see what they feel. So because my husband is a paramedic by trade for the military, and then I am a speech therapist, they were like, well, we feel comfortable as long as you can learn to place the NG tubes yourself. And so that was not fun,
I was gonna
but
say, oh
we
my
did
gosh,
it.
that's
Yeah.
like scary, especially when it's like your own child. Like I can't even
Yeah.
imagine like learning that.
Yeah. It wasn't fun. And I'm so glad we don't have to do that again. But I am thankful for the experience because I do think that even though when I was in the NICU, I don't think I was like, I think mentally I was away from our older daughter who I had never been away from, for like longer than 2 days. So I was emotionally going through that time of like time away from her. And then processing kind of just the swiftness, like from the moment that we had the call or that we learned through the email about our daughter, to being matched and like traveling there was 12 hours. So like we processed everything super fast of like we went from one child to two children in 12 hours. Like it was just quick.
Yeah.
So, and then we were in Texas, we were not home. We didn't have our family and community support. And so we were just kind of like, we were staying in the NICU for like 14 to 16 hours a day and just literally trying to like learn everything from all of our therapists. And um, just every hour someone's coming in, checking in, social workers coming in, child life specialists, OT, PT, like everyone is just in and out, in and out. And you're just like, what is happening? You kind of start to go into a fog. And there was just a lot of fear and stress there. And so it was sad because it felt like the initial high of the joy of matching was like masked by our NICU experience. Um, there
Well,
was
and I'm
beautiful
sure
parts of
you're
it.
trying to also just like bond with your daughter and just get those moments and that time with her, which I'm sure is so
Yeah.
fun with all the people coming in and constantly having to check on her. And
And
yeah,
like yeah, we had to like, we couldn't like rock or move too swiftly or pat her bottom too much because it would like send off the monitors and just like, so you were always feeling like cautious and just trying to be like, you want to connect and bond, but it's hard to connect and bond when you're in such a sterile environment. And you're like, I think my husband handled it much better than I did. I think I just sat and cried for most of it and just was like, I didn't expect it, but I just didn't know how else to like process any of the grief and just the sadness of like, I didn't like seeing her little body go through certain things and like knowing that she was working through struggles with eating. That was a huge challenge where it's like usually feeding your baby is joyful and you know, cuddle and swaddle them up, and eating for our daughter was extremely hard. And so there was lots of crying, and we were crying and she was crying, and nurses are in there trying to help us, and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what's happening? So um I think that's kind of where I experienced a little bit of like some post-placement blues of just feeling like I'm not enough, or I wonder if we like, did I do something wrong, or will I ever like be able to meet the needs of this child? Um, and just like this fear of, I don't know what I'm doing. And this is also new to me and I'm not great at it. So it's like you feel like a failure and you feel like you're failing this precious little baby, but also their birth family that chose you. Like they picked you to be the parents. And now I don't know what I'm doing. And I really had a lot of like grief that I processed in the NICU. And, um, that's not talked about a ton in adoption, but I think it does happen. Like, you don't, with our first daughter, I feel like I bonded really quickly. With our second daughter, it took time. Like I really had to work for it. But the beautiful part of it is that I learned so many amazing skills and techniques, and I had amazing people over there praying for me. And like the chaplain would come in all the time. She was the first person that I totally broke down to and cried to. And she just hugged me and was like, God picked you for this child and for this family, and you have everything you need for her.
yeah,
Like, do not let fear lead you.
yeah,
Um, and from that moment, like once she spoke that over me, I was like, okay,
yeah.
we can do this. It's going to be hard, but we can do this.
He's gonna walk
Um,
you through it.
yeah, yeah. And there has to be like some level of sovereignty and trust, and knowing that like this hard part won't be forever. Like just reminding myself it might be years long or months long, but there will be an end like glory point to it where I will look back and be like, wow, I can't believe we did that. Like I can't believe we actually survived through that. And we did it okay. Everyone came out the other side, like
Yeah,
we're okay.
exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, we discharged from the NICU. They were very kind to us and they were like, okay, go home. Like we think she's gonna thrive at home. So we flew home in July of last year, and a lot of the suggestions given to me were just like baby wear her all the time. And so I would baby wear her and walk outside and push our daughter in the swing set and
Mm.
just like try to get any form of connection and bonding. And so our daughter, we named her Selah.
Oh,
Um, and that is that word means praise. And we just really felt like that was an important part of her story. And her middle name we chose is her birth mom's name.
oh,
So we really wanted to like honor her in that. And so we would come home and Selah would be screaming because she had colic. Um, and I would just put her in the baby carrier and walk around, and I would cry myself and
oh
just
gosh.
keep
Yeah.
walking around. But I was like, we are gonna bond. Like this is not an option. We're together now. So It took her a few months to come out of that. And we did lots of therapies together, like craniosacral therapy and chiropractic care. We had an amazing opportunity to like a ton of our friends and a local mama that I know, they actually donated breast milk to us. And
Wow.
so with donor breast milk, we were able to get Selah off the feeding tube. She did not need surgery, and then she was fully bottling. And I feel like that was such a game changer for us because she thrived. She started like bottling better, and then our attachment started becoming stronger because that part of like infancy that's happened so frequently just became more precious and more sacred. And it was like something that I enjoyed then because it was like our time together of this isn't a struggle and I can actually feed you and you're growing and you're getting stronger. And it was just, yeah, like it really helped my little blues kind of fade a bit.
That's amazing.
So
And I appreciate your honesty because like you said, I don't feel like people really talk about that side of it, of
yeah,
even just the bonding or the blues. And there's always talked about potentially like postpartum blues, but not through adoption really. It's not really talked about. And it's so true
yeah,
it can happen. And I just really appreciate your honesty. And I think it's really going to help other people that are walking through it and feel not alone.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's an easy spot to feel guilty too, though, because you're like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like we wanted this and this is such a gift. But like just like pregnancy and birth, like you can't choose what you feel afterwards. Like your body goes through crazy things. And I felt like I experienced all the same hormonal things that I would, like I totally broke out. I was super emotional, like
I mean, you went through
watch
a
a,
roller coaster in such a
you're
short
like all over the place.
time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean, I really never heard anyone share. And at first I didn't know what it was until I got back home and talked with my counselor. And she's like, I think you have like a little bit of the blues, like some post placement. It's not postpartum. You didn't experience like postpartum, but it's post placement blues. Like this is maybe something where you're still holding joy and love and celebrating, but you're also experiencing like hard and your body and your mind is going through this. And it's okay to have grace with yourself and to be like, not have to like talk yourself, oh, I should feel this way, I should feel that way. Like just feel what you need to feel and then work through it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I spent many hours in her office crying my eyes out and just processing our story. But I feel like the big game changers for us were a lot of baby wearing, a lot of skin to skin. And then once she started bottling better with like donor milk, we just like took off and hit the ground running. And
Amazing.
um like now she is my little clingy koala baby and we just have
Oh,
like the most secure attachment. Like she sees me walk by and she's like, Papa, she's calling for
oh,
me. And so it's just, yeah, it's such a, I'm thankful that we walked through that to some extent because I think that I needed to go through it and it needed to be different so that I could have some compassion
yeah,
towards myself, towards our daughter, but also towards like families that I work with or other moms that experience this and not having the like stigma of shame or guilt, but more of the like, this happens and, there's people to help.
yeah.
Um, but it was a part of our story. And yeah, I don't feel like if we hide it, then it becomes such a part of like shame and guilt even more, where it's like, it's part of what we walked through. So
Absolutely. And it's just
yeah,
something that you just needed to walk through and work through.
yeah,
Um, just having like counseling, I feel like has been such a huge thing in your life. And I think other people can really obviously use that and it'd be a great tool for them as
yeah,
well as community. I think that was like another huge thing for you is the community and support that you've had. That I think that that's something that if people are walking through adoption, I think that's a huge factor that that they may need also that
yeah,
people don't realize or think about when starting the process of adoption.
yeah. And the community piece is so important because like you and typically your spouse or whoever is moving forward with adoption, like you are the trees of like knowledge. And then it's your responsibility to like share the shade with all of your other community and people that are near you. And so like you're soaking in all the learning and you're doing all of the work. but then like your responsibility to your child who will also be impacted by your community and your friends is to educate, is to share with them. And there are parts of our children's stories that we don't share with people because it's not important for them to know. Or it's up to our children when they get older if they would like to share that part of their story or not. But we also are responsible to like create a safe community for them. And I think in adoption, when you do that in your home study process and when you do that moving through adoption, when your children are here, like those people get to be impacted by your story and your children's story too. And like they can speak life into them and they can model amazing things for them too. And it's beautiful for them to like walk alongside the journey with us as well. And after we brought Selah home, we ended up completing our service project on our widow's home. And that was such an honor to just
So
finally,
sweet.
like, we had Selah home and we were like, hey, this is what we're all doing this for her and
Wow.
for the widow that we were serving, Samantha, on her home, and just really honoring her that day too. So we spent like the whole day just working on her house and doing all these projects, and it was so fun. And just everyone was like full circle moment. Like we all
Wow.
just came around together. So
Getting to just then like see her and see like
mhm.
what we worked so hard for, and now to bring her there and get to be a part of it, I'm sure was like such a surreal moment.
Yeah. And it was such an honor to see how many people stood alongside us and supported us, not only like to serve on that day and take their gifts and talents by, hey, I'm going to sand her deck or I'm going to paint her walls, I'm going to fix her tile in the bathroom, to also like the people that donated financially to us. I mean, we were able to raise $30,000 towards our adoption, which is a huge amount of money.
Wow.
And that was an amazing gift towards us and also towards like being able to move forward with adopting our daughter, Selah. And so I think even though fundraising and grants can be controversial in the adoption world, we felt like this was a good way to honor somebody else and to give back something to somebody rather than just to ask for
I
our
love,
own personal support. And
yeah,
so
that's
I hope
incredible. Is
anyone is
it,
interested. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna ask, is it the company that you or the fundraiser that you used, is it
Yeah.
something that's like worldwide, or is it just in your state, or how,
It
do you,
is, it's across the US.
okay,
So yeah, couples can apply online and then they provide all the tools. You get like a one-on-one guidance person who will walk you through. You do like check-ins and phone calls and they organize everything for you, but there is a little bit of legwork you do. We had to meet with like local businesses to ask for like donations of items like paintbrushes, and a local business like donated like the deck stain. But they were happy to help because they knew what they were serving towards. And then at the end, we had our really dear friend Sarah create a video for us. And then they compile that together into 2 minutes and shows like all the work that we did on our home. And so, yeah, it's open to families who are interested in adopting, and it can be if families are adopting internationally or domestically.
oh wow,
It doesn't have to be one or the other, but yeah, it's an
incredible.
amazing
Do
program.
you mind
Mhm.
sharing the name again of it?
Yeah, it's called Both Hands.
Both Hands. Okay. And is it just like
Yes.
bothhands.com and
It's
or
bothhands.org. Yep.
Okay. We will link it here on our show notes and everything too, so people could access that. Because I mean, that is
Yeah.
incredible. And I feel like you said it's not just then feeling like you're just asking for money. You're actually
Yeah.
then serving your community too. And I'm sure that has, I mean, it's just, I feel like when you do good for other people, it makes you feel good. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, and we became so close with Samantha, who we served, and she and I had a lot in common because she was a young mom who, is in the military. Her husband was in the military. She's raising two kids now independently, and I grew up losing my dad as a young child, and so her and I were able to connect and talk a lot about like what it's like to grow up without a father figure. And so I think it was like a very sacred moment for us too, to really feel like we not only served her for that day, but we truly became friends with her. And we still check in and send her letters. And I know that the service project was probably like painful to walk through, to see like all these people are helping because I lost my spouse, and
Yeah.
imagining that. But like the compassion that people had towards her, I think was so healing as well.
Oh, I'm so
And towards us of like, we're doing this to serve you for this baby that you just brought home. And I think it's just a beautiful way to like, serve, be the hands and feet of Jesus and just serve people.
I love that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing all of this. Your entire story is just honestly truly inspiring and just so amazing how you guys continue to persevere through everything. And now you have both of your daughters, which is
Yeah.
incredible. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is there anything for someone who is just now like starting and walking through adoption? Is there any like last little takeaways that you wanted to share with them?
Oh my gosh, I probably have so many. Don't know that I could pick one, but I feel like I kind of already touched on this one. Like, really just do your due diligence of like spending time learning and educating yourself, because you will be that like tree of knowledge that people are going to come to, and you're kind of the first line of defense for your family, and then your hopeful child. And so spend time like educating and learning and listening, and just really practice like honoring all sides of the adoption community and the adoption triad, and just like go in, and it's okay to be fearful, but like just one foot in front of the other, no matter what happens, no matter what you walk through. Like if you just keep making steps forward, there will be like a glory moment at the end. And it might not look like exactly what you wanted, but it can still be so beautiful. And I think our story, from disruption to adopting our oldest daughter, Navy, to then adopting Selah, has really shown me that it can be so messy, but so beautiful at the same time.
Oh my goodness, you could not have said that any better. Thank you so much for being on for the second time and just being so vulnerable and honest with us and everything that you guys have walked through. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.